Hello, everybody, and welcome to Good as Gold. We're glad you could join us today. So, tonight, Barb Whipkey, the owner of Wild Birds Unlimited in Lexington Park and the owner of the Wild Birds Unlimited in LaPlata, she's speaking to us tonight about goldfinches. Their nesting season starts in August, and so it's a great time. August starts this Saturday, so she's going to tell us all about it and how you can provide some nesting materials and food, and where you can spot them if you're the kind of bird watchers that like to keep records. And Barb will talk all about that tonight. So welcome, everybody.
All right, thanks so much. Thanks everyone for joining us. Hopefully you guys are all where the weather has kind of calmed down a bit. I know it was pretty ugly up there in Mechanicsville, so if you're up there, hopefully you're all safe. But anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about all about our American goldfinch, which is the goldfinch that we have here in Southern Maryland. And we will briefly talk about the other goldfinches. I have pictures, we'll mention them, but it's going to mostly be about goldfinch tonight. Or the American goldfinch. So let me share my PowerPoint here. So good as gold. We're going to talk about attracting the goldfinch to your yard. If you've ever wanted to bring them in, now is the perfect time. As Kimberly mentioned, they are now starting to nest. So if you've always noticed, the goldfinch are pretty sweet little birds. And right now they are not so sweet because those hormones, testosterone, has all kicked in. So you'll see them at the feeder, and all of a sudden they're a little bit more aggressive than they have been in the past. So all of that sweetness has gone out the window now. So some goldfinch, a little bit of the basics. They are found all across North America. There is three species of goldfinch. Number one, the American goldfinch, which is the ones we have around here. There's also a lesser goldfinch and then a Lawrence's goldfinch. You will hear a lot of times people talk about, oh yeah, I have those wild canaries in my yard. They are not wild canaries. They are actually in the finch family. We often get calls in the store where people are sure that somebody's pet canary has escaped. And especially during the breeding season, because they have that sexy breeding plumage on and they're looking really spiffy so that they can find a mate. But goldfinches are a member of the finch family and not in any way a part of the canary family. And that's a male that you see there. The males are the brightest, as in most of our songbirds. Our males are always going to be the pretty ones because the females are going to be sitting on the nest. So we need them to be a little more camouflaged. So the males are the bright, pretty yellow ones you're seeing right now. And they have that little black top hat going on out there. The more duller color ones are those females. And then a little bit more basic, the American goldfinch, as I said, inhabits most parts of the US, but they generally move to the northern states during the mating season. And then during the colder winter months, they move into the southern states. So twice a year, we run into a time where your feeders are just overtaken with goldfinch. During those time of year, I'll put up 3 finch feeders and I still cannot keep them full. And that's during the time that they're migrating to the north and south. So with that in mind, you'll be able to notice when that happens this year. When that migration begins, you're going to start seeing like, oh my gosh, where did all these goldfinch come from? You just wake up one morning and there's just lots of goldfinch there. Enjoy them while they're there. It'll be a couple weeks and then your numbers will dwindle off. And that's when we start getting customers come in. Did I do something wrong? I had so many goldfinch and now they're gone. No, they've moved on to the south. It's just too hot for them down there in the summer, and it's too cold up in the winter months for them. So we're just very lucky that we get them here all year long. So Southern Maryland is just a great place to live for bird feeding or to be a birder because so many of our birds are here year round. And then what foods do we want to feed? So Niger is that little black seed. You've heard it called thistle for many years, but it actually is not thistle. It is Niger. Niger is our only seed that is not grown in the US. It's that little tiny, tiny seed. It looks like mouse poop, to be very blunt. Since it's not grown in the US, it has to be heat treated before it's brought into the US. So Niger is our oldest seed that we have in our store. Our seed comes in weekly. If you ever walk into our seed on a Wednesday, you're going to notice that our team is very busy. There's extra team members in here, and it's like a whole bunch of little mice in here. They're just very busy bringing in seed because that seed pulls up to our door 4, 5, 6, 7, during the winter months, 8 pallets at a time every Wednesday. Niger, like I said, is the oldest seed because that seed is coming to our door weekly. We pride ourselves on selling you fresh seed, but when that Niger gets to us, it's already older because it came from outside of the US. So Niger's a seed that you want to make sure that you're buying fresh. Before I opened the Lexington Park store in 2015. Before I opened this store, I was driving to Arlington, which was the nearest store at that point, the nearest Wild Birds Unlimited store, to buy Niger because I would get so frustrated going to the local big box store. I would open that Niger, rub it between my fingers, and it would just crumble. If you rub Niger between your fingers and it doesn't leave a little bit of a oily residue on your finger, that Niger is old and those goldfinches are not going to eat it. You might as well toss that out in the woods and leave that for the fox and the whatever out there to eat. Even the squirrels won't eat Niger, by the way. You can put that Niger in a feeder, fresh Niger, and squirrels aren't interested in it. Because of that heat treatment process, squirrels aren't a fan of Niger. So Niger, you want to make sure you're getting it fresh. So you really want to be careful with Niger if you're buying it from a big box store to make sure it's fresh. And there's a good chance it may not be. When you buy Niger, you only want to buy what you're going to use in about 6 weeks because, again, it's already older than the rest of the seed. Then there's something we call finch blend, and I actually don't even have it on there. And that's my favorite food to feed the finch. It is a mix of Niger and sunflower chips. So it's the two favorite food of the goldfinch. They love Niger and they love sunflower chips. So what we do is take Niger and then we take sunflower chips, chip it very, very fine, and combine it together. And the goldfinch absolutely love it. So if you're feeding in a squirrel-proof location, I recommend using finch blend. I'm going to grab a bag back here. So this is what finch blend looks like if you're able to see that in there. It's just very fine, that Niger, and then the sunflower chips are just chipped to the same size as that Niger. And that's going to be their absolute favorite food. Goldfinch do love sunflower chips. However, with sunflower chips, you will see a lot of waste because they have little tiny beaks. So when they take a bite of that sunflower chip, you're going to see two pieces fall away from the side. That's not them being wasteful. It's just they have little tiny mouths. So they're just taking a bite out of the middle. So if you want less waste, you're going to use the Finch blend so that they're eating it all. And then you can also use black oil sunflower. That is a little bit messier way to feed because they're going to crack that shell. You have the mess of the shell under your feeders, and then they're eating that sunflower chip out of the middle. Couple little tips here. Goldfinch are one of the strictest vegetarians in the bird world. This is the reason they wait until the fall to start nesting. They wait until everything goes to seed. Excuse me. In the fall, when everything goes to seed, they're sure that they're going to be able to feed their young then. So by waiting, they know that nature's going to provide. Even though you have been feeding them, they don't trust you to continue to provide. So they need to know that nature will provide for them. They don't feed insects to their young, only seeds. You want to store that Niger in a cool area. So we talked about making sure to keep it fresh because it's already older. Find somewhere cool to keep it. You can even put it in a container and put it in your refrigerator to help preserve it. And then you want to keep those goldfinch coming back by replacing any uneaten food every 3 to 4 weeks. If that food has been out in your feeder for more than 3 weeks, it's time to replace that. Also, when you go out, every week you want to grab your feeder and just give it a good shake. If that food there at the edge has gotten wet, they're going to turn their little beaks up. Goldfinch are very finicky little birds. So give it a shake every week as you walk past. When you fill your feeder, with our feeders, they open at both the top, but also the bottom comes off to make it easier to clean. Goldfinch prefer to eat from the top down. So if they fly up to this feeder, they're going to come to the highest port available. We recommend filling those feeders from the bottom down. That way that freshest food is on the bottom. So you're not wasting as much food. So you've put the freshest down here. When they're eating the oldest food, which is now at the top. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, put a note in the chat and I'll explain that again at the end. And so that's what I mean by keeping seeds clean and dry is by shaking it. But then also, I put weather guards on all of my feeders. And I recommend that you do also, especially with all that rain we've had recently. But keeping weather guards, a lot of stores sell these as squirrel baffles. These are not squirrel baffles. These are weather guards. This is going to keep your seed dry. It's also going to allow the birds to come to your feeders when it's raining or when it's snowing. So weather guards are a great way to help protect your investment of your seed. And then types of feeders that you can offer. So that style I had there is what we call a perch feeder. So this is just going to allow them to perch and eat. So like my little goldfinch on here, he's just going to perch and eat from that. Let's see, he hangs upside down. So that's what we call a perch feeder. There's also a mesh feeder. And actually, we just have this little cutie patootie that just arrived. So this little one You just open here and fill. That's our newest little guy that just arrived. We also have a larger one. So that with this style, the goldfinch can just cling all over here and eat. So you can get multiple ones on this. Just a word of warning with this style, though, your seed is not as protected from the elements. So you may have to change your seed a little more often with that style, especially with all this rain we've had. That's a mesh one. My absolute least favorite style is that little sock hanging there. We do have these. They're hanging very low and out of sight in the store because I hate selling these. You will waste so much seed if you buy those. When your seed gets wet, you end up having to replace it. It does look cool to see the birds hanging all over there, but you will have a lot of seed loss with those. So I just really hate seeing people invest their money in those. Um, but we sell them if you want them. We have them. I'm just not a big fan because I know you are going to waste a lot of seed with those. But they're here. Um, the perches and the mesh styles that you can put weather guards are going to help protect your investment. When you hang your feeders, if you have a pole system that has 4 hooks on it, you always want to hang your finch feeder from the highest hook. If you remember, I mentioned that finch prefer to eat from the top down. So finch want to eat from the highest spot available. So if you have multiple heights on your feeding station, make sure your finch feeder gets hanged from the top one. And then filling and cleaning your feeders, make sure that you're cleaning that finch feeder every 4 to 6 weeks. If it's rainy like it has been, definitely more on the 3 to 4 week side. I can't stress this enough. Your goldfinch are very finicky birds. And if you want to keep them in your yard versus your neighbor's yard, you have to overcompensate for their pickiness because they will just pack their little suitcases and move right on out. If you just drop the ball, let those feeders go empty, they're out. They are not as loyal as your chickadees, your titmice, your Carolina wren. They will just pack up and move on. So you have to be ready to give them everything they want. And then I mentioned that they are strictly vegetarian. So because they're eating all of that seed, they need a lot of water. Where with insects, they're getting their moisture from their food, or birds who are eating a lot of suet, they're getting moisture from their food as well. With goldfinch, because they are eating strictly seeds, they need help from you with a bird bath. So again, if you want to have those goldfinch with any of the birds, please offer a bird bath. But especially with those birds, you want to have a bird bath. And then if you can add a dripper, mister, something like that, they'll love you even more. Water wigglers, things like that. Be sure to change the water in your bird baths every day or two right now with this heat. If you're worried about mosquitoes in that, we have it's these a little pellet that you put in your bird bath. It's called a mosquito dunk. The mosquitoes will not lay in there. When you go to clean out your bird bath, you pick that mosquito dunk out, change the water, clean the bird bath, and lay it right back in there. And it lasts about 30 days. Once it dissolves, you just put a new one in there. It's totally safe for the birds and the bees. So as I've already mentioned, goldfinch nest later in the year. The reason being they're waiting for things to go to seed. They will nest up to 30 feet high in a tree, typically in the fork of a tree is where they're going to build their nest, but more common is about 3 to 10 feet from the ground. And it's going to be in very dense shrubs. So if you want to try to look for that, and they're always looking for a location near water. Again, I can't hit on that enough. They're looking for a place where they've got water because they're eating all those seeds. They need that water. They also like to use milkweed, cattails, and dandelion to line their nests. You can also, we have these nesting balls in the store. They absolutely love to grab from these. You just pull a few to get it kind of waving in the wind to catch their attention, and they will come and pull from these to help with their nest building. They can actually weave their nest so compact that it'll be tight enough that it can actually hold water in it, which is kind of impressive, as tiny as they are, that they can build it that tightly. So typically your goldfinch are only going to lay one brood a year, but sometimes the more experienced females may produce an additional brood. If she decides she's going to do this, what she will do is leave the first mate in the care of those first babies, and she'll go off and find herself a new man as a partner for that second nest. The female chooses the nest, she builds her nest, and then incubates the eggs all on her own. And then the male feeds the female on the nest. And then as the babies start to get a little bit older, he takes on more of the role in feeding the nestling. So I guess she figures, I've got time. I can go find me a new man, just start a new family over. The female feeds the young for those first 4 days. And then after that, that's pretty much when the male takes over. That feeder there reminded me, I did want to mention that we do have a squirrel-proof finch feeder also in the store. So if you wanted to use the finch blend, which I mentioned is the food they absolutely love, but you don't have a baffled pole set up, you can use this one. My daughter, some of you may know her, she manages our LaPlata store. She has this one on her back deck. And you can put the finch food in this, and what happens when the squirrels gets on it, it closes up. But this one is a finch feeder that is squirrel proof. So it allows you to use that finch blend that they love. So that one's a cool feeder. Okay, just some facts here for the American goldfinch. Their clutch size is going to be 2 to 7 eggs. And like I said, 1 to 2 broods, but typically it's only going to be one. A veteran female may decide to have a second brood. She's going to set on those eggs for 12 to 14 days before hatching. And then they'll be in the nest. The babies will be in the nest 11 to 17 days. The eggs will be a pale white with kind of a bluish tinge to them. Sometimes around the end, they're going to have little brown spots. Now, I don't want you to confuse these. If you're seeing eggs in a hanging basket that are blue with spots, those are house finch. Those are not your goldfinch with the blue eggs with the spots. So don't confuse those. The goldfinch are not going to nest in your hanging baskets on your porch. That is your house finch, not your goldfinch. And then I've got just a few fun facts here to share. The American goldfinch is our only songbird to complete 2 full molts in a year. So at the end of nesting season, all of our birds molt. So lose their feathers is what this means, kind of like your dogs shed, your cats shed. The songbirds molt. They lose those feathers and replace them. So right now you may be seeing most common, the obvious ones are those bald cardinals or bald blue jays you may be seeing. The goldfinch are going to do that. They'll do it a little bit later, and they're going to turn into what you're seeing in this picture. So that is a goldfinch in its winter plumage. So that's not what you're seeing right now. That one's kind of boring looking. And that's why a lot of people think that our goldfinch leave in the winter because they are not seeing those pretty yellow goldfinch that we're seeing right now. So at the end, so about March or so, we start seeing them just bright, getting bright. We don't really notice them losing those feathers as much, but they just magically start turning that pretty yellow again. And that's when those goldfinch have completed that second molt. So those goldfinch is the only member of its family that molts twice a year. So where most birds will grab their seeds and then take off over to a tree or a bush somewhere to eat it, your goldfinch are perfectly happy to stay around and dine leisurely as long as you have enough perches. So if you have our pole system, we have a branch that's designed to twist on to our pole system. A lot of you may have seen that. That was actually designed specifically for the goldfinch to give them that spot to just hang out and sit at the pole system so they can eat and hang out instead of having to grab their food and use it as a carry out. And then a group of goldfinch is actually called a charm. So that's kind of a fun name instead of like our poor crows that get labeled as a murder. When a parent, so a goldfinch goes out and grabs those seed, they partially digest that seed, those seeds, and then they bring it back and they bring back enough to feed the whole, all of the nestlings in their nest. And because of that, they only have to feed them twice each hour. So I know a lot of us right now are watching our bluebirds, and those bluebirds are just in and out all day long. So the goldfinch kind of have it easy. They're only having to come twice an hour to feed their babies. They take that, put it in their crop, digest it, and then bring enough back and just feed all of them. And so only twice an hour are they having to come back. All right, and then I want to thank everyone for joining us. I'm going to take this off stop share, and we're going to cover any questions, whether it be on goldfinch or something else bird related.
So, the first question, where does the Niger get imported from?
Chip, do you remember that question where then? I don't either.
We don't
We'll see
remember.
if we can figure that one out real quick, Bill.
Okay. And then Sam wants to know, what is the easiest way to tell a female goldfinch from a pine warbler at a distance?
Oh, so the beak on the pine warbler is going to be very pointed, and then the pine warbler is going to have 2 white stripes on the wing.
That's the male and or that's for the male.
Yeah, that's going to be for both on the pine warbler.
Oh, okay. Mhm. And if the goldfinches are nesting in thick shrubs, is there a time period where we should try to avoid trimming shrubs or cutting back growth in order
Um,
so you don't disturb the
so
nest?
if there's, I would be cautious. If you're going to trim any shrubs now, I would take a good look at it before you start trimming any shrubs right now, just because we do still have other birds that are finishing up nesting.
Oh,
So, do you have an answer? Ethiopia and then Niger, we believe. Nigeria. And Nigeria. And Nigeria.
thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
So
All right.
yeah, just check those bushes good,
Mhm.
because there's still other birds are still finishing up. Hey Chip, could I get you to grab me some of um, the new blend for the molting? I'm going to have him grab me some new seed because we do have a new seed that's out this year to help with the molting birds too. And I had tested this last year when it was being made, when it was being developed in that, and it was a huge help, uh, or a huge hit with the birds. This is Feather Pro Super Blend, and it comes in both a cylinder and a loose form. And it just has it is just everything high protein, high fat to help the birds through that molt. So if you're looking for foods, whether here or somewhere out somewhere, you just really want to look for high protein, high fat foods during the molt season to help birds through.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? It doesn't have to just be about goldfinches. Barb knows about lots of songbirds. All right.
Yeah. So the question by Kay was on how to fill the finch feeder. I was afraid that was confusing. So because finch eat from the top down, if you keep filling it from the top, you're always putting fresh food on the top and they keep getting that fresh food. So instead, put your hand on the top, flip it over, and put that fresh seed in the bottom. So then when you turn it back over, your fresh seed's here and your older seed is up here. And so now, like I said, they prefer to eat from the top down. They're eating that older seed up first. So then again, next time you're going to do the same thing. So it's just kind of thinking backwards of the normal. Did that make sense, Kay?
She said yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
And we have another question. What other kinds of finches compete for the food, the goldfinch blend? Because
The finch blend is going to be typically your house finch and your goldfinch. However, you will sometimes see your downy woodpeckers at your finch feeders. And it always confuses people, but they do like to get in there. And because they use that little tongue as a tool, they're able to get some food out of that finch feeder.
what about purple finches?
Purple finches will, however, we only have purple finches in the winter time. So I know a lot of times people think the bright purpley ones we're seeing now, the raspberry ones right now, the red, those are really male house finches. Purple finches are only here in the winter, and they're only here some winters. We don't even have them every winter.
Okay.
So
Not a
if,
goldfinch question, but
okay.
how do you track crows?
So crows, you want an open tray feeder. Hang on one sec. And you need it to be a larger tray feeder, so big enough opening they can get onto it. You don't want to put a top to it. Or you can do like we do here at the store. You can feed on the ground. And we have a wildlife blend is a great one. We're not able to use it here in the parking lot because we have to use a no mess so we don't get in trouble for feeding here. But the wildlife blend is the one I recommend for feeding the crows because it's peanuts in the shell, peanuts out of the shell, corn. It's everything the crows love. Um, that's what I would recommend if you're feeding someplace where you're allowed to feed and you're not worried about the mass. It's a great food for crows. So in a tray like that, if you have our pole system, we have a tray that can be mounted onto the pole system that you can put it in. I have a tray on my pole system, and I've got mom, dad, and now they're bringing the young one to that feeder, and they come right to that feeder and eat. So crows are out here at our Lexington Park store. We have Edgar Allan Crow, and he'll actually come out here. If we don't see him, he'll like walk up the sidewalk to the door, like, "Hey peeps, I'm here. Can you bring me some food?" And we take him a handful of no mess out and put it on the sidewalk for him to eat.
Yeah, I hear crows are very smart and
They are smart, yes.
sometimes they'll bring you presents.
They will. We have a few little gifts in a jar in the back that we like to believe that he brought to us. Whether he really did or not, we don't know, but they ended up on the sidewalk near where we feed him. So we choose to believe he brought them to us. And you won't convince the team otherwise.
How do you keep squirrels out of a tray feeder?
So the key with that is you would put the pull system where you would have 10 foot of clearance around it. And then you put a baffle where the top of that baffle is at 5 feet. Squirrels have a horizontal jump of 10 feet and from the ground straight up 5 feet. And as long as you do that, you can squirrel proof it. I
That's
actually, I
that's
have,
really tall.
it actually isn't. The baffle's at 5 feet. So if you think about that, let me grab a feeder here. So that baffle's at 5 feet. So I'm about 5 feet 5. So that's going to put my feeder like this. So I only need to be able to reach the bottom of that feeder to get it down.
Okay.
So, I mean, it is crazy to believe that they can jump that far. But at first, people are like, I'll never be able to reach them. But when you realize, oh, you only have to reach the bottom of the feeder to get it down because you want the bottom of the feeder to be above the top of the baffle.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But I have 11 of those pole systems in my yard. And that's why I have to own the store to support my hobby. uh, but and it's they're all squirrel proofed. But the squirrels, I will promise you, the squirrels are all over underneath cleaning up the ground, which is fine.
Oh, from the cracked shells and everything.
Yeah, well, I feed all no mess, so there's no shells, but the little pieces of seed that everybody drops.
Oh, okay. Well, that's efficient cleaning system.
Exactly, yeah.
Hmm. Any other questions? Mm,
Kimberly, Sam has one more question I'm going to jump in with real quick.
Go ahead.
He's asking, if you're feeding hummingbirds, do you need to separate them from your songbird feeders? You will get more hummingbirds if you're able to separate them, but hummingbirds are brave little birds. They will still come to a feeder if you hang it. So on a pole like this is that branch that I had mentioned earlier. If you notice, it sticks out a ways. It's probably about 18 inches from my pole system. I'll hang hummingbird feeders out here off of the end of this, but then I also hang several off my front porch, back porch. I have some that hang. We have a hummingbird smart feeder that has a camera on it. That one's super cool. Um, as I can see my hummingbird feeders, my hummingbirds, even when I'm at work. Um, so the answer is no, you don't have to, but you'll get more hummingbirds at your feeders that are separate from your songbird feeders.
Um, and we thank you for coming. We hope to see you next month. Hope you guys have fun feeding all the birds and that these tips and tricks have helped you. And that's everything. Everybody have a great night. Bye.